You didn't wake up one day and decide to stop caring. You woke up one day and realized you'd been caring about the wrong people for way too long. And here's what's strange: the moment you stopped, you didn't feel empty. You felt air, like a window had finally opened in a room you'd been suffocating in for years. If that sounds familiar, stay with me, because this video isn't about loneliness. It's about what happens after you choose peace, and why that choice makes complete sense. Let's start with who you used to be. You were the one with the answers, the one with the gas in the tank at midnight when someone needed a ride, the one who sat on the phone for 2 hours while a friend cried about the same situation for the fourth time that year. You were reliable, and for a while, that felt like identity. It felt like love. But here's what nobody told you about being the reliable one: reliability without reciprocity is just a slow drain. Every time you picked up, you gave something: time, attention, emotional bandwidth. And most of the time, that transfer only went one direction. You poured, they received. And somehow, the expectation never flipped. Researchers call this compassion fatigue, a state of emotional and physical exhaustion that builds up in people who consistently give care without receiving it in return. It was originally studied in nurses and therapists, but it doesn't live only in hospitals. It lives in your group chat. It lives in your family dinners. It lives in every friendship where you've said, "I'm fine," because you already knew no one was really asking. There was a version of you that believed if you just gave more, tried harder, stayed longer, eventually it would balance out. It didn't balance out. And one day, mid conversation, mid performance of being okay, something in you just stopped auditioning. Here's something I want you to think about: your energy is not infinite. It is not a renewable resource that resets every morning. It is more like a bank account, and some people in your life have been making withdrawals for years without ever making a deposit. You know exactly who I'm talking about. The friend whose number appearing on your screen makes your chest tighten before you even answer. The coworker who leaves every conversation somehow about them. The person who reaches out only when they need something and disappears when you do. Your body knew before your brain did. That tightness, that sudden exhaustion after certain conversations, that urge to not pick up, and then the wave of relief when you don't. That is your nervous system sending you a very clear signal: this relationship costs more than it gives. Science backs this up. A study published in the Journal of Health and Social Behavior found that high conflict or one sided relationships produce stress responses comparable to outright loneliness, meaning being surrounded by draining people isn't protection from isolation. For your nervous system, it practically is isolation. So when you started protecting your energy, not dramatically, not with a speech or a goodbye, just quietly, by being less available, by not responding, by choosing your couch and your silence over someone else's noise, you weren't being selfish. You were finally being honest. Cutting off a friend is one thing, but the moment you start pulling back from family, suddenly everyone has an opinion. You're the problem. You're ungrateful. You're tearing the family apart. What they never say is, "Why did you leave?" For a lot of people watching this, family wasn't safety. Family was where you learned to manage someone else's emotions before you understood your own. It was where love came wrapped in conditions, where a compliment could become a weapon depending on the day. Psychologists have a term for what happens in emotionally unpredictable homes: chronic stress adaptation. When a child's environment is inconsistent, warmth today, coldness tomorrow, affection, then criticism, the child doesn't get confused. They adapt. They become hyper attuned to other people's moods. They shrink. They perform. They become whoever the room needs them to be. And then they grow up and they carry that performance into every relationship they ever have. So, when you finally stopped performing for your family, when you stopped showing up to dinners that left you hollow, stopped answering calls that made you feel 12 years old again, that wasn't abandonment. That was you choosing, maybe for the first time, not to betray yourself to keep the peace. Boundaries with family aren't betrayal. They are the only honest thing left when love has been consistently used as leverage. This is trust collapse, and it doesn't happen overnight. It happens slowly, the way a bridge erodes, invisible to everyone else until the day it gives way. And the strange thing about trust collapse is that people who haven't experienced it always want to frame it as bitterness. They say things like, "You're too guarded. You need to open up. Not everyone is like that." But here's the truth: people who have learned not to trust indiscriminately aren't damaged, they're data informed. When you've watched someone tell your secrets, you learn what secrets cost. When you've extended grace and watched someone take it as permission to do it again, you learn what grace requires. When you've been honest about your pain and watched someone use it against you, you don't stop being honest. You just become careful about who receives it. That's not a wall, that's discernment. There's a significant difference. Walls keep everyone out. Discernment lets the right people in, the ones who've proven over time that they can be trusted with your real self. Your circle getting smaller isn't a sign that you failed at connection. It's a sign that you finally stopped settling for the imitation of it. You are not cold, you are not broken, you are not someone who gave up on people. You are someone who got honest about what people were costing you and decided that peace was not a luxury, it was a requirement. The friend who burned you out, the family that conditioned you to earn love, the people who drained your energy like it had no limit, the ones who broke your trust and called your reaction the problem. None of that made you hard. It made you careful. And careful, chosen deliberately, is one of the most self respecting things you can be. You don't owe anyone access to your calm. You don't owe anyone a version of yourself that exists only to make them comfortable. Your peace is not a consolation prize for people who couldn't be trusted with your chaos. It is the result of finally choosing yourself, quietly, without performance, without an audience. And if your life is smaller now, but gentler, you're not doing it wrong. You're finally doing it right. If this landed somewhere real for you, leave a comment. Tell me where you are in this. I read every one of them. And until next time, protect what's yours.